Rick. Hey, man.
Hi, Rick.
Yo.
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 Awesome. Well, hey, everyone, and welcome to today's Voices in Marketing panel. I'm Trenton Romp, the head of marketing at Current by Pattern. We're an influencer marketing platform and agency, and I am pumped for today's panel. We have an amazing group of people here today that have an awesome experience and tons of knowledge that they're going to share with you. Today, they'll be discussing the intersection of wellness and social media and sharing with you their expertise, experience, and strategies to make influencer marketing effective and authentic. And joining us today as panelists, we have Olivia Hedlund, the Director of Influencers at ARMRA, Marisa Cifre, the Chief Strategy Officer at ASystem, Rick, I'm going to blow your last name here, but Cadotte, the VP of Growth at Sigmatic, and Chelsea Leyland, the co-founder at LOONI. Also, I'm so happy about today's moderator. We've spoke a couple times, and every time I come away, she's very cool, nice, brilliant, and also a wellness chef to the stars and founder of the Soul Wellness Method, Shauna Faulisi. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Shauna.
Thank you. Hi, guys. I'm so excited for this. And as we discussed, it's going to be a very dynamic conversation. And many of the questions that I'm going to ask in this conversation is going to sort of be an arc. So we're going to start with the past, the present, and then head into the future. And all of your brands are at different stages. You all have different niches and different experiences. So we are going to be able to leave learning from one another and being able to teach some tidbits and tricks of the trade. So let's get into it. And thank you to everyone for being here. So I'd love to start with Olivia at ARMRA. You guys have a product that is ancient. You have an ancient product, colostrum. I had been drinking it in Erewhon years ago before you guys even existed as a brand. And I think personally, you guys are the brand that brought this particular ingredient to the market. So tell us how you guys chose your influencers and getting your message out there for a product that already existed and is a little bit weird for people who are not used to it.
Yeah, I think that we had to do in the beginning years. So background, I've been at ARMRA and I started our influencer program 2 years ago from pretty much last month, or is it still March? No, it's April. I've been here 2 years since March and basically started ground zero. It was 3 employees and we've obviously built up our influencer program a lot. I'm sure you guys see a lot of our ads and our influencers speaking about us. And I think because colostrum is still and was such like a woo-woo, nobody had really heard about it, or if you'd heard about it, you were a mother who had had a child because you produced colostrum. We had to do a lot of category building and education. And something that I'll probably say a million times on this webinar is the word authenticity and how important it was for us to build and educate our community. So with our first influencers, we did so much education. We wanted to kind of act as a wellness influencer and very easily help our community and the influencers who were posting about us be able to speak to ARMRA, understand what colostrum is in a digestible way. So in the initial part of ARMRA, when we were working with influencers, a lot of that was just constant education. On our end, how to speak to ARMRA, what the product is, and a lot of our campaigns were focused on brand building and people just spreading awareness. Like, oh my God, I heard about ARMRA. Everybody's talking about it. What is colostrum? And so we really just had to kind of tell everybody what it was. And now we've switched to a lot more testimonial campaigns once people are able to say like, oh, we know what colostrum is, we see it everywhere. Then kind of the next step in our influencer journey was to have our influencers talk about the way that it makes them feel. I think that us as consumers were really selfish and we always want to know like, okay, what can you do for me? So once we were able to tell people what colostrum was, we kind of shifted to how does colostrum make you feel?
Sure. How are you choosing these influencers to showcase your messaging and a very specific product while also being compliant on what you can and cannot say?
Yeah, that's a hard one. For the compliance part, there's super strict FTC, FDA compliance that all brands, especially supplement and wellness brands, have to adhere to. So we make that very clear. We have like an easy one-sheeter that the influencers get in regards to choosing influencers. We have a lot of inbound, which we're really lucky to have. We only work with people who have tried ARMRA or are willing to try it for 2 weeks to a month. I think that in the wellness space, there's so many like quick products. Like you see a new wellness product pop up every single day. And in order to build authenticity in our program, we wanted to, one, work with people who already knew about colostrum and were already using it, and then choosing people who shared their health journey or were really relatable. I think people who do well for supplement brands are the influencers, not necessarily who are like the most aesthetic, making the beautiful reels and all the beautiful content, but the like mothers who are like sharing about their real life struggles and how they're busy and they can't take 7 supplements, or the wellness girl who has been on a journey with her digestion for years. And so there's a lot of manual work that goes behind it. We are constantly, like our whole influencer team is searching on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and finding people who we feel like would relate to ARMRA.
Awesome. Thank you. Rick, I'm going to pass it over to you. So you guys have been around for a really long time. I've been using Four Sigmatic for years and years. There isn't a flight I get on that I don't have Four Sigmatic coffee. And you guys are really generous with gifting. And I also know that you are working with creators on a larger scale. So how has that journey been? How are you deciding who's getting what, where you're gifting versus paying? Can you talk to us about that process of who you're choosing and the process of getting more Sigmatic out into the world?
Yeah. Our sampling programs as a whole have been crucial, and our repurchase rate kind of speaks for itself. So it's one of those kind of beautiful things where if you just get the product out to the world, they come back. So with that, getting it out to creators then allows real authentic testimonial in a world that's like paid for listicles and bought testimonials. We kind of spray and pray on this realm of just sample the hell out of this thing, and people will then reach out to you being like, I want to be a part of this, right? And it becomes infectious for both the people viewing the content because it's truly authentic and it actually stands out on your reel where you're like, this was not just paid. So this wasn't just a quick buck that someone got, right? And you could see it, in them, you feel it in them. It's like going to a restaurant where the cook loves what they're cooking for you versus a restaurant where the cook's like, just another Saturday, like get the food out, right? Like there's a noticeable difference, and you never met the cook, you never saw him, you didn't see it, you could feel it in the food, you understand what they're talking about or what they're thinking, their emotion. It's expressed through the product they're creating. And same thing works for creators. But yeah, there's lots of thoughts there. I could keep rambling, or you tell me where you want me to go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we all collectively have so much knowledge, and we're going to really try to consolidate it into the 50 minutes we have left. Marisa, talk to us about ASystem. You guys have products for stress, for sleep. How are you also looking for influencers to differentiate? Are you guys more on the gifting side? Are you paying? What is that looking like for you?
Yeah, ASystem and the brand has done a great job at really making itself look really big, but in reality, we're a really small team. So we are very much focused on return on investment, gifting, similar to what Rick is saying, kind of that spray and pray, but it takes time to get a win. I think that's one of the things is like, if you're doing that gifting approach, you have to have someone just cranking out using some like AI type softwares also to just get like some bigger list, and also just, yeah, kind of be a little bit patient with the process on landing some good influencers. But we've had really great results. People love the product once they get to use it, and we like to give them time to genuinely and authentically resonate with it.
Awesome, thank you. And Chelsea of LOONI. So you guys are really new, and you've had some really creative ways in community building and getting your name out there, one of which is a nude dinner that you hosted that I know you had amazing press from. And I think that was a brilliant way for you guys to get your name out with making a one evening investment while also showcasing some of your product and yourself and your methodology. So talk to us about what it's looking like in these very early beginning stages for you guys when you are getting this hormone balancing product out to hopefully the world.
Thank you, Shauna. And again, just want to thank everyone for being here and for having me on the panel. Really honored to be here. So I think, you know, we have, we're still a very, very small team. And that's, I think, speaks to this feeling that we still feel, you know, somewhat early in our journey. And I think as a result, the way that we approach marketing, you know, we have to be scrappy. So it's always like, how can we think a little out of the box when we don't have, you know, the budgets that we would ideally like to have to put behind paid marketing or paid influencer marketing. So, you know, grassroots efforts, we love anything that builds community authentically. We have a beautiful WhatsApp community, and this community, you know, we've tested and learned, and I think that's the approach that, you know, we always take with everything. Test and learn, be malleable, you know, be able to change direction when things aren't working. Because I think a lot of the time with social media, you can get a little stuck, and we've definitely experienced that, where you can keep churning out the same thing and it's just not working. So I think it's like really being able to measure like what is working, what is not. In terms of some of these out the box efforts, I like to call them. So yes, we did a new dinner. We partnered with a incredible female nudist chef called Charlie Ann Max of Food. So she's in the same space as you, Shauna. And, you know, she's someone that's so fascinating as a case study because she keeps building this incredible following on social. And she keeps getting kicked off because of her, you know, nudity. And so she's had to be so creative in terms of coming back on and trying new ways that she can continue to put forward her authentic self without offending anyone and without, you know, being kicked off the platform. So we decided to partner with her because her values were really, really aligned in terms of opening people up to our natural selves, our authentic selves, through, you know, vulnerability, through nudity, through self-expression. And so we did this incredible dinner, and she created a hormone balancing plant-based menu, and everyone turned up in the nude. And now what was really interesting about this is New York Times caught on that we were doing this new dinner, and they got in touch with Charlie and they asked us if they could cover it, and which, you know, obviously New York Times is the gold standard. We were absolutely you know, filled with excitement. We said, as long as they wanted to photograph, we said, as long as you send a photographer, they have to be in the nude. So they did send someone. And this article was, you know, fantastic. And it really went viral, and it got picked up by so many other publications and platforms. New York Times doesn't link out to other brands' websites. So that was really interesting learning from us. I don't know if we could have done things differently, but I think it didn't lead to as many you know, customer conversions as we would have liked. But it was just a great way of getting our brand out there and getting people talking in a way that, you know, whether they liked it or not, they were shocked. It made an impact.
Yeah, I think it comes down to community building. Some of the most recognizable brands that for me personally are ones who are building really strong communities. And I actually think beauty brands do this really well with hosting dinners. They're very generous with product. And with what you did with this new dinner, this is when you and I had first chatted. It's something I asked myself while like making my bed, just like sort of in my life, like, would I ever attend a new dinner, and would I ever be the chef for a new dinner? And it sort of like just started this conversation of like, could I do it? Why couldn't I do it? Or if I did it, what would I feel like? And it started this whole internal dialogue for me. And even if someone was like, absolutely no new dinner for me, when they're receiving LOONI and they're introduced to your product, they can use it as a talking point to their friends, saying like, yeah, this brand is so great. It's helping with my hormones. I actually like throw these new dinners. Like, it's a really great conversational point, and it's part of the community building strategy, which I think is so brilliant. So as far as when we're considering influencer marketing strategy, whether it's gifting, paid, or community building, I'd love to quickly have each one of you share.
It's gonna be here. Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah. No worries.
I don't know where that's coming from.
And that's the point though. Okay.
Ooh.
No. Well, mommy said Shirley.
Oh, Chelsea, can you mute? Is this you?
I think maybe the Bluetooth picked up someone else's.
Oh no. Who
I
is
just,
it?
so it's not me. I was worried it was me, but.
Oh. Pattern, are you able to mute wherever that's coming from? So sorry, guys.
No, no worries. That's so
Oh.
weird. I'm trying to figure out where it coming
It's
from.
good now. It's good. Thank you.
That was
Okay.
so bizarre.
So,
Okay, here we
so
go.
bizarre. Some childhood play. Okay, so would love for you guys to share some things that you're considering, your top most important thing when considering influencer marketing, whether it's community building, seeding, paid, and 2 traits you look for in your creators that you're doing either of those 3 things with. Rick, I'll start with you.
So our strategy, like, there's no better way to describe it in general than shrimps and whales. And I don't condone whale hunting or anything. It's just an analogy, so bear with me here. But the shrimp are smaller influencers that are plentiful, easy to catch. You can go out and grab a lot, right? And you just small micro influencers. They provide like the food for the village, right? And they're consistently out there. And then you go for the whales, and they're harder to catch, riskier. You could fail, right? And you go out, and the whale doesn't work, and you waste a lot of money, a lot of resources on it. But at the end of the day, a good mix of both works very well. And these shrimp can provide the backing to a larger campaign, such as like the nude dinner, right? A lot of those tent pole ideas or those big stakes in the ground that you're going to make, the real magic happens at the surrounding campaigning that you're going to do around it, right? So how do you take that content and provide it down long stream on a tailwind? Or how do you lead up to it, getting excitement and finding the New York Times and just hunting them? And some of that is actually like reverse targeting. Let's say we want to be in New York Times. I'll get micro influencers and target New York Times writers and just be like, hammer them, just keep hammering them, and they won't be able to get me out of their head. And then eventually they're gonna be like, I've been hearing about you all over. I'm like, yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Like, yeah, we're big now, you know, but they don't realize that I've got like custom audiences with just reporters. And that's sort of moving those needles back and forth are kind of the way we look at it. And you never want to be too heavy on either. You don't want to look and be like, we're only on whales right now. We're just huge, big $100,000 influencers. Or you don't want to be like, we're only micro influencers, because at the end of the day, the scale there and the amount you're spending, either time or resource wise, is probably equal to what you're going to be spending on one big whale. So you want to make sure you're balancing it. I think that answers your question.
Yes. Thank
back.
you. And one more question for you, Rick, and I will get back to the same question for the rest of you. When we had originally spoke, you shared about a successful, like sporadic TikTok video that went viral, but you guys had already had a specific strategy in place. But then you had this thing go viral from a creator that you had no idea was even happening. How did you guys navigate that? How did you manage your team to parlay what was happening over here, but staying true to what you had originally planned?
I think it goes deeper than what you originally planned. You want to make sure you keep drawing your team specifically back to the why you exist and what you do. It's really easy when you're in this micro influencer shrimp world of managing, you're answering questions, you're getting excited about little things here and there, and you see one pop off and it's like our focus blend. It's like, at the end of the day, we make coffee, and that's really our inroad to bigger markets. But we have these ancillary products that do help, and they provide deeper, more educated users great solutions. Kind of our secret sauce once you're in, but you can't get too distracted. You got to make sure that the danger of managing these micro influencers at scale is storytelling at scale is very hard. So you want to make sure that you keep bringing them back to the why and the what. And you're just making sure that the story that is being distributed in all these different voices and all these different case studies and use cases is telling the same why and what, and ultimately you'll have consistency. But if you start to get too wide, you'll find that you have influencers on one pocket, maybe doing semi-successful, but they're giving brand awareness to an audience that's maybe getting misled or thinking that you're way too complicated for them, or you're placating an audience that's different than who they are, even though in reality you could be going towards them and you should be targeting that audience more accurately. So I guess that's the danger of managing small influencers at scale, right? You want to make sure that they have a common purpose, and that common purpose has to be very linear and tight. It's so easy to get off trail, and you're then finding people talking about like nature's Adderall, and like, yeah, it's cool. We can't say it, right? And like, definitely can't pay for that, but like, don't mind it being out there. But then like, you still want the majority of the ones you're doing to be telling the same story. So if you go towards a bigger campaign, that campaign makes sense. It doesn't seem random. It doesn't seem like what the heck is that? I thought you guys are Nature's Adderall company. It's like, well, no, we make coffee, and we happen to have this thing that one influencer called Nature's Adderall. And you're like, bring it back to the why. Make sure you chase the waves when they come, but you're ultimately bringing everyone back towards that main core purpose and that product market fit that you work so hard to achieve.
Yeah, thank you. There's so many things coming at us all the time. And as we're saying, we're pivoting and moving in so many different directions because of all these outside informations that are coming our way. And I used to work for Hillstone Restaurant Group for 6.5 years. And if you have been there, you know how by the book consistent that restaurant group is, and they had systems in place. And there was a quote in the back when we were ironing our aprons every shift, and it was a Walt Disney quote that said, when your values are clear, your decision making is easy. So I think that that's just a great thing to live by personally and also professionally, especially while we're building brands. So Marisa, same question to you. What are you guys considering in your strategy? Are you finding that any misinformation or interpretation of what it is you're trying to achieve? And what type of influencers are you looking for to relay your messaging?
Yeah, as far as strategy, I like the shrimp and whale example, but yeah, we're also focusing on micro and macro influencers with a definition in micro for sure right now. And then as far as what we're looking for authenticity. I know that that word's used all the time, but we really want people that have a genuine story themselves as to why they need the product and why they're using it, because ultimately it's in the name, a system. It's one product and one tool, but we also want to talk about all the other things that are helpful for you. So if we're talking about de-stress gummies, we want to talk about meditation. We want someone that's like genuinely talking about their tools and this being one product in that toolkit. So that's really where our focus is when we're finding influencers. As far as the micro influencers, and we've definitely made the mistake several times where we get really focused when something pops off and just try and hone in on that. A good example of that would be we had our gel roll-on went viral for the first time. It was pain relief for men, but it went viral for PMS for women. And this girl was saying how it's like what the hot girls in LA use. And we really tried to kind of just use that in all of our marketing and all of our influencers, find more people like that. We had some wins, but we also realized we did need to zoom back out, talk on the fitness points as well, still go for the PMS stuff too, but it was a good realignment for sure.
Thank you. And Olivia, what are you guys looking for? I know we talked about it a little bit with your different types of influencers you're working with, but same question to you. How are you guys? What's your most important thing that you're keeping in mind with your strategy?
Yeah, I would say I love, again, the shrimp and whale strategy. I'm going to use that. I think opposite to Marisa and Rick, we are heavily weighted on our macro, our whale, and whatever is mid animal strategy. We have just seen the highest brand awareness and conversions on the revenue side of things with the mid to macro influencers, and we are trying to work now to really like get that micro community. But I would say that like our bread and butter is our mid to macro people. And I think
Can you define that? Can you define that for us, for everyone watching?
I would say that typically influencers with over 100,000 followers, like 100,000, and this is different for everybody. So if this is different for you guys, sorry, but we typically classify like mid influencers from like 100K to, I'm going to say like 300 to 400K, and then macro would be anybody above that. So people have like 500, 600, millions of followers, and we are primarily paying those type of influencers to speak about us. Obviously, to Marissa's point, we're looking for people who are authentic, who take the product and who have had actual experiences that they can speak to. I think a lot of people are scared to do paid because it is kind of up in the air. You don't know if you're going to make the money back. You don't know if it's going to land. And in the beginning, when we were starting this program, we were just kind of, oh, if you love the product and you want to talk about it, yeah, we'll pay you, and not really having a strategy behind it. And now we are very, very specific that we will not activate anybody without seeing analytics. You can learn a lot from how engaged an influencer or creators audiences by getting their Instagram link clicks and their Instagram views. We primarily focus on Instagram story content because it's clickable, it's easy for the consumer, and it's easy for us to track. So I think when you're starting a paid program, no matter if you're paying micros, mid, macros, getting analytics beforehand and really evaluating like, okay, is the click-through ratio high? Do they have good engagement? Does their audience look healthy? Is going to help be kind of insurance for getting a return. Of course, you can never know. Obviously, some people who have amazing link clicks and amazing engagement may not convert for you, but I think that that is something, because we have such a heavy paid strategy and a mid to macro strategy, that we're always going back to the analytics and making projections, as well as the people who work for you, like our bread and butter people, are probably always going to work for you because they have such an authentic story with your brand. They post about you a lot. And so it's also about a split between testing new people and trying it and seeing kind of how it does with budget, as well as having like your bread and butter people who you always know are going to work to you and are like brand friendlies, is what we like to call them.
I'm glad you brought that up with the metrics and analytics, because somewhere what I'm seeing and what I'm personally implementing as a creator on my side, I am really no longer doing one-off partnerships. So like month, 2 months, like it's just not happening. It makes zero sense in my storytelling. And I think myself and the brand is wasting our time. I think that there are influencers who have crazy conversions, but I think those influencers are a lot more money. They have a very different background. Maybe they have been at it a long time and they have different demographics. There's so many things to consider. And this is something that I think is changing in the industry in general. The more brands I speak to and founders, they're like, we're not doing one-offs either. So are you guys also implementing this? Are you seeing this change? Because I think it's really hard to send a brand like 3 story slides from a previous partnership and have that really relay the big picture. So I'd love to hear your insights on that as marketers.
Yeah, I can talk about ours. ARMRA's to start. We definitely have shifted to long-term partnerships, like usually 3 months minimum, and we do multiple pulses each month. I think a report came out, like a consumer report, where it takes the average consumer 7 times to even convert or click or buy something. And it also seems much more authentic if you are using it multiple times. So we are definitely our influencer marketing strategy. We're very friendly to influencers saying, hey, we're only going to take long term. I would love, in a perfect world, I would just work with all these influencers for 12 months plus the whole time I'm at ARMRA, because it makes it easier and it's more authentic. So I think the wellness industry in general is, I think, one of the first industries that can really shift to that, because with supplements, it isn't like a lifestyle or beauty product where you can try on the makeup and you see the differences right away. Supplements and wellness brands, they take a while for, 1, your audience to warm up to them, and 2, you to even try them and have an experience with them. So we've definitely shifted to like 2-3 months minimum just to make sure it resonates with your audience. But long-term partnerships, yeah, are definitely something that we are trying to do.
Thank you. Chelsea, what about you? As a newer brand, how are you guys sort of utilizing this longer term strategy, or not?
I think, perhaps somewhat less strategically. And I mean that in the way that, for example, with affiliates. So when we reach out to specific creators a lot of the time, which I really, as a creator myself, I love to hear this, where creators are saying, okay, I'm interested in your affiliate program, but I want to try the product first. And I think that is, it shows the type of creator they are, which I think is really important. And also, I think to Olivia's point, like, these are supplements. So, it's not a sort of 7-week plan and then, okay, I'm done. The efficacy is sort of apparent, and then we move on. LOONI supplement, we suggest to take, over the course of 3 cycles. So that's, 3 months, or 28-day cycle is an average menstrual cycle. So I think, because we are focused less on paid and more on organic, more on affiliates, we are sort of adopting this approach organically, whereby, we reach out to creators. They often say that they want to try the product first. We slowly build a relationship. The hope is always that the product speaks for itself. And I think that, Rick mentioned that as well, but there's nothing more gratifying than somebody testing the product and just deciding that they see the impact, that they really, can really see it, and they want to continue taking it. So I think, that approach for us feels long term. And then I think, I come back to our online community, which, albeit small, is just always interesting, because I think, again, it's like building these longer term relationships with people. We offer, for example, discount codes within our supportive community, and people are really there because they have, a hormonal health condition like endometriosis, like PCOS, like fibroids, like PMDD, or they might be suffering with fertility. So, they're having some disruption in regards to their like hormonal life cycle. So, offering like that community discount codes, but also creating like brand evangelists out of these people. And I think that's sort of, looking a little bit more long term and thinking, okay, if we create this core community, they are also going out as our brand evangelists and speaking about the brand. So I think, again, I hate the buzzword so much, but we're all talking about authenticity, because authenticity is everything in life. I always say, you can't buy authenticity. You can't mimic authenticity. Like, that is the beauty of authenticity. And you feel that when you hear influencers speaking, you hear it when you hear someone speaking on a panel. It's like this kind of sparkly golden essence that you can't quite put your finger on, but you can feel it. And I just think that, like, when it comes to marketing, it's so important. And I think a lot of it, again, I come back to testing and learning, because sometimes, these more macro creators and influencers, whilst, there's that brand awareness piece taking place, they might not convert to sales. And sometimes, obviously, with the smaller influencers, you see that conversion. And, as a founder, one of the things you kind of struggle with sometimes is like how to take everything that you've sort of learned and then implement that into a strategy, because sometimes it's just so mind-boggling, because you're like, oh, well, you thought that was going to convert, and you thought that was going to be a success with that particular creator, and it just wasn't. And sometimes, the ones that you think aren't going to resonate do. So always testing and learning. But yes, I think we are looking more long-term, just because that does speak to our product more authentically.
Thank you. Marisa, I see you nodding over there. I have things I'd like to say, but I want to let you get it out, because I think you have a lot to say too.
I resonate and agree with a lot of that. As far as like our influencer budgets, we don't have like a huge amount to be doing like very large, like flat payments, but we've really been focusing on this long-term relationship building, where we're gifting product, we're giving them subscriptions, we're giving them codes, we're giving them affiliate links, we're gifting them product for events and helping them host their own events. And it's this really lovely like relationship building, where it's like we're showing up for them. We have, most recently like a breath work in New York for one of our influencers, and our head of influencer, Nat, like, she went down there, she brought the product, she did it with everyone, and there's this nice relationship building going on. So that's how we've been building up the longer term there.
That's fantastic, because I want to touch on a few things here in this conversation. And I'm totally going to play devil's advocate, and I'm coming from a different place. at some point with brands, listen, my job is to discover new brands that work and that have integrity behind them and whose founder has a reason and a why. And I do that research on my end. I'm also a holistic nutritionist and wellness chef. I have a different purpose in the world, but it's still the same because my mission is to help you feel good in your body. So I have live IRL clients who I do that with, and I do that in IRL events with my community from online, but then I'm able to share this messaging online. So when I get emails from really small brands, or I go to Expo West and this brand is putting their entire marketing budget to have a booth at Expo West and chat and hopefully get their brand out there, I have so much compassion and I want to help. If I love the brand, people should know about the brand. The thing with me is when I'm signing on, and this was different 10 years ago, 8 years ago when I started and wellness was just becoming a thing and Instagram had just launched. This was a very different conversation. I was taking gifts and I was writing blog posts and I knew I had to put in that work for free. I was working 3 jobs to build it up and make it happen. You have to do that. I'm in a different place now while still wanting to highlight the small brands I love and adore and believe that could really help people. I really like what you said, Marisa, about community building and supporting the creators, because it's often mind-boggling to me why someone thinks that I should work for free. Like just off the bat, like how am I going to create that? This takes hours. How am I going to do that for free? That being said, sometimes I do because we have conversations that are, how can I support you? We're getting funding in 3 months. We will guarantee as soon as we do. Like these are conversations I'm having with brands. And I'm like, listen, me doing this right now with you is an investment in you. You're not really doing me a favor at this moment because you don't really have a following. You're not really hosting any events yet. You don't have a budget. Like it's truly me investing in you first. And I think that that's really important for brands to realize, like, we are humans who have bills. Like your product, as great as it is, it's just not going to do that. And I'm speaking so frankly, and like industry standards is not something I'd ever say publicly on Instagram, but it's the truth. So I love what you're doing with your extra budgeting. You're like, okay, we want to put this into community building, which is really effective for, if say we were to do something, if I'm hosting a brunch or a high tea or a great workout, we can pay the studio, have people come. It's a great way for me to interact with my community. You're getting your name out there. I'm guaranteeing you a social post, and you helped me out too. So I think really getting creative in those ways when you really don't have a budget and utilizing your own networks, or if you have a small budget, it's something I just wanted to add to the conversation because we have all different types of people watching, and I think it's important to note. And Rick, I'd love to sort of pass it over to you, because when we spoke last week, you also were sharing like how you will seed and gift like until like the cows come home. So how are you guys, are you supporting in any other way besides that? Or also how are you deciding who's getting paid?
Yeah, so great points. I'll speak first to like the creators, and then I'll speak to like the brands, right? And to the creators, it's hard getting started. Like, let's not pretend that it's not. And as a creator, you have to build a moat around your same product market fit that a brand has to build and buy and work towards. Creators do too, right? You have to show that what you're creating resonates and can be used to activate an audience. And that's where the value in intellectual property is built. Right? And that's why someone would pay you for it in the first place. And until that's really established, you have to either pay for it, either through your time and effort, or you have to take some losses here and there and be like, this is the right one. This is going to establish product market fit. It's like a resume builder, right? Like it's coming out of college. Like, of course, we all want to make 300,000 a year, but it's like, are you? No, right? So where do you start, and what gets you towards building that moat around yourself to where you're allowed to invite people in and they're thankful for being invited over the side of that moat and they're willing to pay for it, right? And until you have that, it's a hard value proposition for a brand to come around to, being like, I get that you have bills, but I'm also not forcing you to talk about my brand, and I'm not, forcing you to be a creator. And I appreciate the struggle and I see it, but there is that, like, it's a hard, and that's why not everyone can become a creator. You have to make good content that speaks to an audience well, and that brands want to be a part of, right? So yeah.
And it's part of, I think, playing the chess game too, as a creator and a brand. Like, it's not, these things aren't immediate. This is like the long game here. So it is deciding, like, I love this analogy. You have great analogies, Rick. Building the moat to come on over. Like, you guys have built a brand and community and recognition where we want to come over. Another brand who does this really well in beauty is Cadotte. They're hosting beautiful dinners. Of course, they've been around for a long time, but like, I'm going to post them all the time because they bring me to gorgeous dinners and they're really good to me. They courier things over. They make sure I'm taken care of. They're putting money into events. It's like, I think it's a matter of also the brands treating the influencers well, if there's not always a budget, and both parties deciding like what is the best move here.
To keep the mic here for a second, that kind of brings me to speaking to the brands, right? And like, there's 3 different topics inside of that, and it's the analysis, the deal structure of what you're going to walk into as a whole, and then the briefing process. And the analysis, you have to decide how much time are you going to put into this, right? Is this someone that, because at the end of the day, as a brand, we could always figure out, you could spend the time and do the math and figure out like what's their reach and what's the CPM and what's the potential impact. But like, are you going to do that for 30,000 affiliates? Like, there's no way. There's no way. None of us have a team big enough for that. There's just, you cannot do that at scale. So then you have to decide, is this someone that's large enough or a big enough opportunity for me that I'm going to do that analysis and I'm going to figure out the best possible opportunity? Or am I going to say like, it's about close enough, but I'm going to shave a little off the top to give me the upper hand to make sure that I'm not taking too big of a jump or a risk there. And if it fails, it fails, but like, go for it. And usually that's commission based. That's why affiliates are post-purchase. So your cash conversion cycle takes place after, right? So great. Then the second was deal structure. Is this someone, and that's part of the analysis, right? Like, am I making this deal to where it's just, you make me a sale, I'll give you money. Like, it's easy, right? But then the harder ones are, do you have a large enough or fast enough growing audience where I want to have my content placed in an area that there's people, you have inbound audiences, like a podcast where for years people are going to be going and watching your old podcast, right? Like, very different deal structure and very different opportunity for you as a creator, right? So you're still building a business of this content creation engine, and what's the long tail there? What are you providing to me after this engagement, right? And that's going back to the past conversation of long-term, short-term, kind of depends, right? And one-offs probably don't really work, but they could work if you're just trying to get a groundswell around like a single, like, new dinner. Just get as many people talking about it as possible, and like, gonna be fine. Like, that's gonna kind of accomplish the point. Is this something where you're trying to build a storyline? Probably want it a little longer term. And then the briefing comes down to what the purpose is. Like, I saw a question in the chat, like destination, where are you sending them? And the bigger they are, the bigger impact, or really the more you're willing to spend, also comes down to when we're at our best as marketers, we're creating those campaigns around it. So are you making a landing page, and are you making a continued storyline? Or are you just hoping that the golden thread that you're handing off to this creator, the storyline happens, like the conversation continues in Google or Amazon, and they're going to ask a question. You just need to be in front of it, right? And then that is to the point of, you're just briefing to make sure that what you're having them present to the audience is making that audience ask a question that you're already in front of via SEO or long-term or long-form content that then can continue that storyline towards conversion, right? And that's really like, those are the 3 points that we look at when we're going down that hole of what's the deal look like and what are you going to do? It's like, well, how much time should you really be spending on each one, and how big are they? It's fanciful to say like, yeah, of course we could do this for each one. We can make a landing page and a brief and blah, blah. That's how you should. Kind of hard in reality.
Yeah. And honestly, truly, because we're all here today, tools like Current can really help with tracking these influencer campaigns and affiliates, and it's all done on the back end. So it's really great for brands who are starting out, or you guys are trying to seed and reach a broad audience in this way, to have tools like Current to help you do that. Marisa, I'd love to hear, and I'm going to kind of pivot this because we're ending. When you guys are tracking success, is it ROI? Is it reach? Is it community building, or all three?
I would say two, community building and ROI. Right now we're hyper focused on ROI, but I think community building is our long-term path to that ROI, because it goes back to that strategy. We're looking to do proof of concept, support these influencers. And if we see a really nice merge happening, then we can really make that budget start to become available. And that's where I think the magic happens. So ROI and community.
Thank you. Chelsea?
I think I would second what Marisa was saying. I think for us, ROI and community, again, it's just like that. The approach that we're taking is, you know, we're always having to be scrappy. And I think in terms of, it's just being super, super, super,
no. I'm going to hand it over to you, Olivia, and then we'll let Chelsea finish when she's back.
I'm gonna echo Marisa and Chelsea. I think ROI and community building. I think if you build a strong community, you are obviously going to have a lot of engagement, or a lot more engagement, which we have seen at ARMRA translate to a higher ROI. So I think they all go together, but at the foundation of it, it definitely starts with community building.
Yeah, community building, I think, is it. And truly, I think this is a really great hack from what I've seen on my end as a founder, and I've actually done this before. So for any founders or newer brands starting, and I'd also love to hear your guys' expertise, a handwritten note goes such a long way. When a brand new founder reaches out to me with a product that they've been working on for years, and they are sliding into my DM and they're writing me a thoughtful note, and then they send me a really beautiful package that you know they spent a good amount of their budget on, with a handwritten note complimenting me and sharing how excited they are for me to try the product, it goes a long way. I always save them. And sometimes publicists will send these handwritten notes, but it's, you know, it's from a publicist. We're so excited for you to try the product, X the brand, but a handwritten note from someone deep in the team goes a really long way. So I think that's a really great hack. And then, hi, Chelsea, welcome back. We were going to let you finish, but I'm going to finish my thought. You left us hanging. You left us a little cliffhanger over there. And then something I did during COVID, I had just launched my guides. It was a soul wellness 2-week guide and our 6 pillars guide. And it was COVID, and I had plans to utilize my network and drop off flowers and a handwritten note that would coincide with an email attachment of these PDF guides. But it was COVID, and like you couldn't go near anyone. So I decided to keep the handwritten note and the flowers, but I went to the store, ordered, and I got really beautiful paper, and I hand wrote the note, put the flower around the note, took a screen grab, and sent it in the body of the email, this photo. So they got the handwritten note, and then I attached my PDF. And they're like $15 PDFs. Like, they're meant for people to download and be able to utilize. But it was just a creative way. I had no money and I couldn't get the word out there. So I think like, when in doubt, you go back to the basics of being kind and supportive when needed. Chelsea, sorry, go ahead, Marisa. Oh wait, hold on, Marisa, what were you gonna say?
One quick tip for brands that and maybe that are just like, they're not fulfilling themselves, they don't have the time to do the handwritten notes. I want to throw out there that there are 3PLs like a Mason Hub, where someone on your team can draft up a handwritten note, they will write it for you, can do that personalization. So looking for a 3PL partner that does that is also huge recommendation.
Thank you. Great. Chelsea, you were telling us.
I dropped off before, but
That's okay.
I just on that point, I think, you know, that you had made, Shauna, as well before, about, you know, brands being kind and supportive and sort of trying to understand it from the creator side. And I think having been, you know, on the influencer side and on the creator side too, I think that has always been really interesting, now being on the other side of the coin as a brand. And I think because we don't have the budgets that we'd like to spend. And I was saying we have to be scrappy. It's really about sort of like, what is our currency as a small brand? What can we offer creators? Perhaps not, larger creators, but what can we offer, smaller creators? And I think it's always just I always like to lead with like being quite honest about, where we're at. Like Shauna, you had mentioned before, some of the brands approaching you and saying, we haven't got funding yet, but we want this to be a longer term relationship. And I think, for us, it's always like, well, can we work on some collaborative content and use our platform to amplify your work and your voice? Can we have you host an event? Can we have you attend an event? A lot of the time, like smaller creators are looking for that exposure. They're looking to build relationships with people. Networking is everything as a creator. So, having access to events, I think, can be incredibly valuable. So it's really about just like sort of taking stock of what you can offer. Is there a way that perhaps you could write a piece of content for us, or we could feature you in one of our newsletters? So, that's kind of how we think through or try to be creative in terms of, building these longer term relationships and being understanding that the creator doesn't just want to work for free, and also has a lot of inbounds from other brands that are also approaching them and trying to get content out of them.
Sure, thank you. And also quickly, photographer at events goes a really long way to get single shots of your attendees that they can then post and have professional photos on their feed and in their stories, goes a really long way for like a few $100 investment. So I'd just like to add that. And then Olivia, you told us, I got a little sidetracked with our drop off, but I want to make sure we got to you. Okay, good.
Yep, got it.
Okay, good. Thank you. I want to leave time for Q&A, but last question to wrap it up before we get into Q&A. What practices are you saying goodbye to, and what are you implementing moving forward this year? Anyone want to take it?
Yeah,
All right.
I can have
Yeah.
So I would say like just focusing on the gifting of micro influencers and solely like just trying to do that, we're saying goodbye to in a small degree, and really kind of that same theme of what we're focusing on, that longer term relationship build, getting to the point where we will pay flat fees, but need to kind of do that proof of concept relationship building first.
Thank you. Rick?
Yeah, so in past years, I think a lot of us as marketers got spoiled on the power of direct response, right? And it's kind of gone. And if it's not gone now for you, it will be soon. So leveraging influencers in that middle tier, middle funnel, rather than top of funnel, looking to them for social proof, looking to them for true user stories, amplifying concepts that we want the public to know, and then layering on, let's say like OTT commercial kind of old school marketing above them that speaks to the broader net that you're throwing, that you want them to take different points of. So looking to this group, right, of content creators as a whole, as filtering in the gap of putting a human in front of the consumer rather than just a concept or an idea or a long form storytelling device.
Rick, someone is asking what the power of direct response disappearing is, and if you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, so in like 2010, 2012, you go into Meta, make good campaign, and you just put the pedal down, and all of a sudden it just finds more and more and more sales. In iOS 14.5 was released in May of 21. That was the first kind of blow to that, where Meta's algorithm lost a lot of data points against what they were allowed to know and then aggregate against user conditioning, user availability to buy, and the potential wallet share that you can go out to reach. And besides knowing who everyone was, the real magic was knowing who was ready to buy in that moment. And you could go out, throw an ad to them with a good offer, and that person was just teed up to buy, not necessarily your product. Maybe they didn't know about you yet, but they were just ready to spend some money. And Meta was very dangerously good at getting that ad in front of them. A few technological blows later, that sort of targeting and availability has really gone away. Right now, as most of you probably know, Meta is more driven by like creative finding than human targeting finding, right? So you're kind of just dumping good creative into the systems and letting it go out and put that creative in front of large swaths of audiences that are much more expensive, but similarly effective at scale. But you need creators, you need more content, you need high quality, you need different takes, you need different voices, lighting, different styles. You got to test broad to be able to find the stuff that works the best for different pockets, and those pockets evaporate much quicker than they used to.
Thank you. Thank you. Olivia or Chelsea, what are you moving forward with? What are you saying goodbye to?
I think definitely saying goodbye to transactional relationships. I think that is like a big theme of this whole chat that we've been having, that it is so important to bring in community building events, long-term relationships, and making your creators and the people involved in your community feel special. Again, obviously with the larger partnerships, that can be with payment, but to your guys' point with the micro influencers, sending specialized emails, sending them product, restocking them, seeing how they're doing, having events, and just kind of meeting creators at different levels where they are to continue to build your community in a very authentic way.
Thank you.
I would say that really, pulling back on paid marketing through Meta and really focusing more on communities. So brand partnerships, how can we work on brand partnerships that really, really speak to our mission and speak to our story around hormonal health? So these partnerships have a piece of education to them and can live on beyond just one event. And so really finding brands that are, willing and open to working with us because they care about our mission and feel that it's an adjacent mission. So for example, we recently launched a partnership, like a gift with purchase with Ceremonia, which is a hair care company. It focuses on clean hair care. And so really, really getting like thoughtful about why we were partnering. And that was because, we were encouraging people to use products that don't have hormone disrupting chemicals in them. And so there's always this piece of education, and there's always a much like deeper reason why we're partnering, so that it can live on beyond the event as well. So that's kind of where we're focusing more, is kind of community brand partnerships as opposed to sort of paid Meta advertising.
Thank you. Okay, we have some questions here, and then we're gonna pivot into the Q&A portion for the next 5 minutes. We'll just go slightly over. Do you guys actually, I'm gonna do this question first. Can you guys fire around a favorite influencers to work with right now, or favorite campaigns? I actually wanted to stay away from name dropping, but if you guys are comfortable with it, then go right ahead. Or if you don't feel comfortable with it,
the hardest question I think I've ever been asked.
If you don't feel comfortable with it, maybe back to the question we asked earlier, like traits or something really specific that you're looking for that you could recommend a newer brand to look for when scouting influencers.
Traits is influencers or creators that are creating content that people go to seek, right? So I want to go find out something more about something, right? So it's supplements. Who do I think about? Who am I going to for that? And you're like scrolling through the feed and you're like, do they talk about colostrum somewhere? And those kind of creators, even if that's an edge case, it's the right idea, right? They're creating authenticity, and they're creating like a knowledge center that audiences are going to inbound look for. And that's pretty powerful. That's worth a lot of money.
Okay, thank you. Or if you guys want to answer it with like a favorite campaign that was successful, you can do that too. The person is asking that as well.
Well, I can speak to that. We launched originally we developed a LOONI clitoris shirt for our team that was really just meant for our internal team, and we had a lot of people asking where they could purchase a shirt, so we decided to make it available, and we launched the shirt, which it was free with a new subscription in honor of Sexual Health Awareness Month, and we launched some really, really unique and fun content. Obviously, again, it had that educational piece in regards to the anatomy, but for us that was really successful, and it was bold, and it was loud, and it also was fun, but educational. And yeah, that for us, I think, was probably our most successful campaign.
Thank you. Marisa?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have been focusing a lot, I would say, and pivoting focus towards influencer categories, not only fitness and wellness, but getting specific into like holistic nutritionists, chefs, like Shauna, that's exactly our profile, someone we love to really. Stylist is another really interesting category. So like Rick mentioned, writers, stylists to like celebrities, that's been a really interesting way to approach the topic.
That's actually smart. They have one of the hardest jobs in Hollywood, like truly. Their workload is out of control. Like people don't realize it, and that's actually very smart.
So yeah, been focusing there. And yeah.
Thank you, Olivia.
Yeah, on the interesting audience categories, one that we've been testing a lot into that has been working really well is home and DIY. I think that because we're wellness brands, a lot of people think, oh, you're working with all the wellness influencers, right? But I think to your point, people who are stylists or hairdressers or home and DIY, and people who aren't traditionally in the wellness world, they're really selective with the brands that they work with. And I think that they have audiences that are really receptive to wellness brands.
Thank you. Yeah, I think sometimes it's like the adjacent brands where there's some, or categories where there's some intersection, like wellness and fashion. There's somewhat of an intersection there. Do you guys have any recommendations for getting involved in the business side of influencer marketing, like all of your roles? This one was specifically to Olivia's role at ARMRA, but I think it's applicable to all of you.
I mean, Olivia had to start.
Okay. Yeah, I can. I think it was the universe bringing me into this role. I did not have any influencer experience besides the fact that I'm a content creator. But I think that now that influencer marketing is a very much like sought after role that people want, there's a lot more resources coming about it. I think that just reaching out to on LinkedIn, one, any of us, but two, anybody who's influencer marketing, I'm always open to talking to people about how to get into this. If ARMRA has internship opportunities, and I mean, we're also connected with different brands that we can refer out or at least give people tools and resources how to get into this.
Thank you. That's sweet.
Want to make sure that it said anyone that has the power to hire wants someone that's passionate about the brand. So if you have a favorite brand, reach out to them. Like everyone here needs help with finding better influencers and more influencers, talking to those influencers, managing those influencers. Send a proposal to consult. And it's really easy to get hired when you're consulting and you're doing good work and the brand knows you and you're familiar, and then you come to them and say, I want to work for you full time. It's like, get the contract from HR, let's just do this, like hop in. Right. And it's definitely the easiest way. Reach out to a brand you love and give them a few influencers that you think you could reach out to, that you think would be a good fit, and kind of what you would do for them. And, it's pretty easy to come to a real quick consulting agreement. Everyone wants help. Everyone wants help.
Yeah, to piggyback off of Olivia and Rick, like that's 100% spot on. Always looking for content creators that are looking to get into influencer marketing and always need help. Like, don't be scared to send a cold email, reach out to people. Like, people just love passion and we all need help.
Kelsey?
I mean, echoing everything, everything that has been said, I think passion speaks volumes, and so often, as a founder, I think having someone come forward and say that they like the brand, but also I think where they really, really truly speak to the mission. So from the founder side, if somebody was approaching us and said, I'm suffering with a menstrual health condition, so I really, really care about the company you're building because I know what it's like firsthand to experience some of these symptoms. And I really think as a result, that your mission aligns and I can really help support you. I think also that really speaks volumes, because I think, having someone that aligns with the mission means that they're going to be incentivized to work hard for you every day, because they really believe in why you're building the company.
Thank you. Yeah, I think really to summarize our conversation, it's obviously being smart with the tools we're using, and we have tools like Current that can help us with measuring our reach and ROI. But also getting back to the basics. It's about relationships, community building, being kind, being passionate. It's just like, it's the basics here implemented and in play all the time. Thank you guys so much. This was such a pleasure to speak with all of you, and truly what a treat to have this conversation. So thank you all for being here. Thank you so much to Current for having us and being such a resource for all of us in marketing. Hi.
Hey, that's a good segue. Yeah, I just wanted to throw out a thank you as well to all of you, especially Shauna, who did an amazing job moderating this panel. So thanks so much. And if any of you listening want, like I think Olivia mentioned, you could reach out to people on LinkedIn. These are as an expert group of people to figure out and unlock kind of influencer marketing. And I think even just brand building in general, because all of them are doing a stellar job of that right now. And thank you. And with that, we'll say adios. So bye, y'all.
Bye. Thank you.
Everyone.